Order of business, we have a big announcement to make. Friday at 5 p.m.
Microphones aren't on.
Friday at 5 p.m. Erica
AM.
Sorry, had her baby girl. And they're both doing fine, and I believe they came from the hospital today. So she should be able to tomorrow.
They are, yeah. Good.
Next is to approve the minutes from the August 7th meeting.
I move the approval of the minutes from August 7th, 2017, as submitted.
I'll second that motion. Any questions from the audience on the minutes? Brian?
I've got a question, at the tail end of it, on the comment section. It says that Karen Lampy shared information about the problem she had with the 911 system over the weekend. She called the Township Police Department, there was no answer, and was wondering what she could do. Mr. Jacobs stated it's a county issue, but that she should contact Chief Swinninger about the concerns. And she didn't, from my listening to what she said, is she didn't have a concern with the 911 system, but her concern was that she called 911 and no West Vincent Township police officers showed up. And Chris Farnham was also in this discussion, and he made the comment that there was a police officer in the area because he saw them after the same solicitor that verbally and nearly physically assaulted Karen was at his place, and he locked up his entire house. So I don't think this characterizes what happened and what the issue is.
Seems to be right, that what she said was that she called 911 and the police officer didn't show up. That's not particularly to say who fell down on the job. Somebody apparently did. I think you're suggesting that the fault was here.
No, this characterizes she had with the 911 system. She didn't have a problem with the 911 system. They answered phone.
But did they notify West Vincent? We don't know that.
That is correct.
Okay. So I think the minutes say that.
What's that again?
I think the minutes say that.
The minutes don't say anything about her issue of not having a West Vincent police officer show up. And I believe that was her concern. John took it off in the direction that you call 911 rather than calling the local West Vincent Township Police number.
What's your recollection, John? Were you here? No. You weren't? Brian, I think you're caught right in between the two. I interpreted it as a problem that she was unaware where it began. And from the conversation, it was pointed out that, even by you, that 911 did not do something. At least that was on the surface.
I went back and listened to what she said, and her concern was that a police officer had not shown up. Because when she went to leave her house again, some short time period afterwards, she went and had the same person there, right in her face, and she was concerned about physically being assaulted. Or at least that was the impression that I got from it.
We can solve this because it really is, if we add that police officer after her 911 call, a police officer did not show up.
Okay.
Is that?
I'll accept that.
Okay. So can we make that change and vote on it now? Francis?
A follow-up to the statement, could we get a composite sketch put on West Vincent's website so we know what this person looks like?
Say that again? You want whose picture up on the web?
Well, obviously, the lady who was here saw the person who rang her doorbell and threatened her. Can't we do a composite sketch of what the man looks like and put it on West Vincent's website so that other people around here will know what this man looks like in case he comes prancing down their driveway.
Jeff, do you have a thought on that?
Do you have a composite artist?
No. That's going up a little bit beyond the scope of what we would normally consider our duty, I think, Francis.
Right.
Brian?
John, you might simplify it just down to that we've had reports of people that have been soliciting in the township. They were not registered with the township from what I heard at the last meeting. And that if they have somebody show up, they should call 911 about it.
Is that possible to get that up on the website?
Yes,
Great, thank you,
that
Jeff.
might already be on the police side. Check.
Say that again?
It might already be on the police department side.
Thank you, Brian. Any other comments on the minutes? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote of approval. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next item is the bills list. The township bills list for this meeting is $69,035.49. The reimbursable bills list is $26,572.24. And the subdivision utility plant bills list is $6,722.81. All three bills lists combined total $102,330.54.
I move that the board approve the bills list dated August 21st, 2017, with a total amount of $102,330.54 as submitted.
Second. Any questions on the bills list? Going once, twice? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. What do we have here? Tammy, can you tell us what this letter from the Chester County Department is?
I got the information from Chester County. They have a potassium distribution date on August 24th from 2 to 7 at the Kimmerton Fire Hall. That's because we did near the power plant. So if you would like a potassium iodide tablet, they are distributing them on August 24th.
Does anybody have any questions on what that is? Next is a thank you letter to Officer Fritz for helping a person's dog locked in his car. And that is from Pam Edwards. She also gave a donation. Thank you. Under the subdivision land development, we have Weatherstone Commercial Planning Module Resolution 18-2017.
I move that the board adopt Resolution 18-2017, submitting the planning module for the Weatherstone Town Center to DEP for approvals.
Second. Joe, can you tell us what this is?
I'll defer to Brian on that.
I'll explain it.
Is this the re-rate?
Yes. Oh, you meant Brian Kulikowski. I thought you were talking about Brian Curry. I'm sorry, Brian. I gotta pick on somebody tonight, Brian.
Good evening, John, Mr. Chairman. The resolution in front of you is the resolution for the board to authorize the township's secretary to sign the module and pass it on to the DEP for their review and approval for the re-rate. The re-rate, or better term to be the allocation of the flow for the commercial portion of Weatherstone to the treatment plant for Weatherstone. So,
In preparation of them doing something on the site.
yes, preparation for the commercial construction, commercial plans to be developed and submitted. So there is not, the plant itself is still going to be rated for 110,000 gallons a day as it is now as designed. There's going to be no change to the allocation of flow. There's going to be no more flow to the plant. It's just, this is a planning mechanism for the DEP to approve the construction of, and the connection, I should say, of the commercial to the plant.
So we're getting it into the DEP's hands for them to decide what's the correct allocation.
Yes.
Okay. David, do you have any comments on it?
No.
Any questions for Brian? And I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you. Should I stay for that one?
You want to stay for the next one too?
Chairman, questions?
The Natural Lands Trust Supreme Co-ed acceptance of deeds of dedication.
We had prepared and worked with Brian's office to come up with the deeds of dedication and the ultimate right-of-way for National Lands Trust subdivision, and you accept that by resolution, which is in your packet.
I move that the board adopt resolution 18-2017, accepting the deeds of dedication and ultimate right-of-ways over several tax parcels, as submitted for St. Matthews Road and Flowing Springs Road, number 1, St. Matthews Road, number 1, 2, 3, and 4, Beaver Hill Road, number 3, St. Matthews Road and Beaver Hill Road, number 1, Flint Road, number 1, Kimberton Road, number 2, Miller Road, numbers 1, 2, and 3.
I'll second that motion. Is there anything really to explain here, Brian?
This is strictly the deeds that offer the areas along all the road frontages within the co-ed for dedication to township to bring the right-of-way of those roads listed to current standards, to your current township standards.
Any comments from the audience? Jim?
Yeah, during the planning phases of this, several times Natural Lands Trust representatives said we can look at that easement along St. Matthews regarding the easement for a possible future trail. We didn't resolve it in the planning commission, but is that included in what this resolution is? Is enough space for a community access trail?
That, if there is an easement for a trail, it's not part of the dedication tonight. This dedication is strictly for the road rights of way. There's still additional subdivisions in front of the township for review. And the area.
Well, we have an opportunity then to see if Brian followed through, if Brian and Natural Lands Trust followed through with
I
that.
think the easement you're talking about is in your subdivision 2 or subdivision 3. It wasn't in this current batch. This is the batch that was the center around the main portion of the barn.
Yeah, I'm speaking along St. Matthews.
Yes,
So
well,
this batch is on the north side of St. Matthews?
The next batches.
Okay, all right.
Brian, you had a question?
So this keeps us from having the problems we've had, other problems before with, we didn't fully dedicate the road, and then we had problems with, being able to use that area which was proposed for dedication, but hadn't been dedicated, correct?
No, I'm not sure that, you may be correct.
Brian?
Yeah, I would say that's correct.
Yeah, this is correct. What we're doing is we're getting the right-of-ways of those roads to the full width of, that's as required by the township ordinance. So for example, if St. Matthews is required to have a 50-foot right-of-way, it didn't, it will now. It may have only had a 33-foot right-of-way. It's taking the right-of-way to whatever the township standard is per the ordinance for all roads fronting.
Okay, so then what this is doing is, this says, this is the township's responsibility at this point. Without having that dedication, it would not be the case, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the audience? We don't have to read the resolution, just pass it, David's motion. And all those in favor? Aye. You're gonna be busy tonight. Next is the hearing to consider ordinance 179-2017, zoning ordinance revision of the fee member requirements.
At this time, I'll open the hearing to consider the floodplain ordinance amendment as mandated by FEMA. Introducing to the record Board Exhibit 1, the ordinance itself. Board Exhibit 2, the legal notice for tonight's hearing. Board Exhibit 3, the proof of publication showing ads placed in the Mercury on July 31st and August 7th of 2017. Board Exhibit 4, the July 19, 2017 submission to and receipt by the Chester County Law Library. Board Exhibit 5, the July 19, 2017 submission to the Chester County Planning Commission and the local Planning Commission dated August 11, 2017, and their review letter. Board Exhibit 6 is the local Planning Commission review submission of June 15, 2017. Board Exhibit 7 is the proof of the ordinance FEMA compliance from and through the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development. With that, we've been bouncing this ordinance around for a considerable time, and for the benefit of the audience, Montgomery County has already gone through this with all the municipalities and met the deadlines that FEMA requires. Now it's Chester County's turn to go through all this. So my office has quite a bit of experience with these and dealing with FEMA and regulations from FEMA. I had expressed previously at the last meeting that my office does not recommend this ordinance. That continues to be the case. However, without passing this ordinance, you will not get insurance that requires FEMA approval. So it would create a hardship to people in the township that are currently in the floodplain. So with that, although I have recommended in every municipality not to do it, the municipalities have always, without exception, still passed it because they want their constituents to be protected. So with that, does anyone have any questions from the board?
No.
Are there any questions or public comments from the audience? Yes, Brian?
I wonder, excuse me, if you all could speak into the microphone. I'm a little hard of hearing, but
I'll start by turning mine on.
that would be good. I can hear Tammy, but I can't hear you.
The question I have is you just said that you recommended every township that they not approve it, et cetera. And yet they have, and due to the hardship issue. Can you give us a short summary of why you think it should not be approved?
Well, there's several reasons. This is a very, very thick ordinance. But let me give you two that are easily understood. The first one is they use the term variance all throughout the ordinance. The term variance is a zoning term. It's defined in the municipality's planning code. There's thousands of cases saying what a variance is and the hardship required to get one and the various legal standards associated with different kinds of variances. This variance that they're using here is nowhere near what zoning interpretations have been on variance, and they won't let me change that word. It should be called something else, but they won't let me change that word. And I've been back and forth with several municipalities with them. Another one that bothers me the most is if you have a flood and you have 25% reduction, or 25% destruction of your facility or house. If you have another flood within 10 years that causes 25% again, that you then have to bring your entire house or structure into compliance with the code, including the use. Well, Pennsylvania has rights for non-conforming uses. They're protected. The state protects those uses because that's a legal use, but for the fact that you passed an ordinance making it illegal. So Pennsylvania recognizes that as a use not to be taken away. Yet FEMA, on the federal level, has no concept of what Pennsylvania requires. They don't care what Pennsylvania requires, and they insist that you have this provision anyway. I don't like that provision. I don't like it at all. I have no intention of ever enforcing it, unless specifically directed to. But that's two easily understood examples of why I don't recommend ordinance.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, ma'am.
What would be the hardship if the township doesn't approve the ordinance?
That people wouldn't be covered by FEMA insurance.
But they could still get private insurance at a greatly reduced rate?
I don't know whether the rates are reduced or not, and Maria, you brought this up before, so you must have some knowledge with this. I don't know what the alternatives are to people that live in the floodplain. I haven't researched nor am I familiar with the different insurance companies.
I mean, just from my own personal experience, I have, and I had a 90% savings off of FEMA charges versus a Lloyd's of London plan with the exact same coverage and deductibles. And it was, approved by my mortgage company, so.
Yeah, there may be better alternatives out there. I'm not familiar with them. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
So you're saying that, say for example, people on French Creek Road would flood out quite frequently, that they would have to bring their properties up to compliance to get reinsured at their own expense?
if you have 25% destruction from a flood, FEMA-covered flood, and then within 10 years, you have a repeat of that to the tune of at least 25%, then they will force you to bring your property totally up to code, up to building code, plumbing, electrical, zoning, and I think that's just outrageous.
Joe, you said you'd have to bring it into compliance with use?
Everything.
Okay, so if you have a non-conforming use, and you have those two floods you're talking about, you're out of luck.
You're out of luck.
Your property is no longer in compliance.
I think it effectively confiscates people's properties, and as long as I'm a solicitor, I would recommend we don't enforce it. But unfortunately, they won't sign off on this ordinance unless it's in there.
But we have to pass it as a practical matter, but we don't necessarily have to tell you to enforce it.
That's correct.
Okay.
Well, it's not partially correct. I guess someone could take us to court. We're not going to voluntarily hurt people like that.
Right.
This question.
Yes, sir.
If I understand you correctly, if a property's not been brought up to code, then that person can't get the flood insurance under FEMA. But are there any other issues beyond that?
Yeah, it's more than just can't get flood insurance through FEMA. That example that I gave you, and that's just one example, so don't hang your head on just that. This ordinance is much more involved than that
Well,
one
I'm only
example.
talking about that particular issue because that's an issue that you raised.
Right.
So if you have a second condition,
Mhm.
and FEMA then says, you have to bring your house up to code.
Our ordinance that we're passing tonight will say, you have to bring your house up to code, so it's more than just FEMA. And that's the reason why, one of the many reasons why I don't recommend the ordinance. But I found in all the other municipalities that, as a practical matter, you gotta pass the ordinance.
What happens if, on that second occasion, you don't bring your house up to code?
You could lose your use, you could use your house. I think it's confiscatory. There's no provisions in zoning that from something that's not your fault, you lose your property right. That concept doesn't exist in zoning. This ordinance has that in there. And that's what I find to be the most offensive part of it. Yes, sir.
Two questions. We're talking about the use of the word variance. Is that their definition? Is that defined anywhere in the documents at all to clarify it and separate it from your definition? That's my first question.
No, they really don't.
Okay.
But I think it's more than clarifying and separating. You got a zoning code now. If we pass this, you got a zoning code
Right.
that has all sorts of criteria for variances and thousands of cases that are based on that. And in the same zoning code, if this ordinance is passed, you're gonna have some other concept for variance.
Right.
And I just don't think that's
So
appropriate.
basically, by mixing the two definitions of variance, you're clouding the ordinance.
Well, I don't know what a variance is under this ordinance.
Okay, there you go. The other question is, if you are going forward, with great reservation on passing the ordinance, is there any way to convey that reservation in the actual adoption of it? So it's actually,
This ordinance has to be reviewed and approved by the Department of Community and Economic Development. And we passed this through them.
Right.
They know what I don't like. I've communicated with them.
Right, well, it's one thing to they're aware of it. It's another thing to actually indicate that in the adoption of it, in writing.
If we don't pass their ordinance that they approve within a certain time period, you lose your
It's
insurance.
basically saying, we have to take it as is with no comment, or we don't take it at all.
They've given me some minor comments. I've gotten to work some in, but there's still some major ones that I've not
Right,
gotten.
I'm just trying to figure out a way to convey to them that, we're going forward with this ordinance, but we don't completely want to. How do you indicate that in writing to the powers that be?
Well, I've indicated that on several occasions too.
Okay.
Now, this isn't my first one. Montgomery County's totally done. Chester County's just started.
Right.
So I have several municipalities in Montgomery County, I've been through this one. Yes, ma'am.
One more question. So if your house had damage or for anything, and you have to repair it, don't you have to bring it up to code anyway?
No.
No? So if you're doing your
Depends on
renovation
the
in your
extent,
house?
depends on the extent of the damages. And at 25%, you would not have to. Okay? I hope I didn't confuse anyone. It's just, I don't like this ordinance, and I also don't want to take people's insurance away from them.
Joe, procedure now, we close the hearing and then we make a motion.
If there's no other comment, then we'll close the hearing, reconvene into the public meeting portion of the agenda. This ordinance is now in a position for your consideration.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
I move that the board adopt ordinance 179-2017, amending Article 16 of the West Vincent Township zoning ordinance, floodplain conservation overlay district, requiring all persons to obtain a permit for construction or development within these areas in West Vincent Township, and other changes as mandated by FEMA.
A second. The audience has one more chance for any questions on this. Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Next, we have Vic, you're up again. Vision Partnership Program grant application.
Speaking to the microphone tonight.
Before you start, Vic, I just want to bring the audience up to date. If you were here last meeting, we decided not to apply for the grant because I insisted on seeing the product before, because I wasn't sure whether the county is going to reimburse us if we just review it, accept it, or adopt it. And you came back and you insisted that we would have to adopt it.
If there's any changes that are recommended, yes.
So-
So basically, this is a project that the EAC is working on. We've been discussing tree protections for Jim over a year, don't you think? Yeah. So, we have a proposal from Ed Thurkoff, who is a consultant. And one of the ways that we could pay for this is to get this Vision Partnership Planning grant from the county. They offer them twice a year, so there's one coming up. And the reason that the EAC is concerned is because forests are, of course, critical to water quality, which we have these great exceptional value in EV streams. It's the interest, as far as we can tell, it's in the interest of the township to preserve woodlands. We seem to have a very conservation-minded township. We want to maintain or increase forest cover for water quality. We want to clean up the existing ordinances, simplify them, clarify them, make them more consistent, maybe update with new information, especially when we're looking at invasive plants or invasive insects, with all the impacts that are happening to our forest trees. And we want to identify and preserve the high-value older interior forest. Anyway, so we have this proposal. The Vision Partnership Grant is due, this particular round, round 2, is due August 30th. It does require a Board of Supervisors letter of support. We did get the supervisor's permission to go to the pre-application meeting with the county, which we did. And the county said that the fall, or this second, round 2, is pretty competitive because a lot of townships are looking for these grants to have in their budgets. So.
And this is for next year's budget.
Yes. And so the work would basically not start until 2018. The county has very specific requirements on how you have to put a task force together, so it wouldn't just be the EAC, but we'd have to have planning commission people, we'd have to have board of supervisors, we'd have to have lots of public input and public comment. So it wouldn't be just like a group of us super tree huggers, like doing all this. So And Ed's proposal, he did tweak some of the things to say that we would be looking at. And I did highlight them so we could find them more easily. So review existing regulations and discuss areas in need of strengthening. Look at either regulation or other appropriate strategies, so it's not necessarily making more things, but getting definitions for heritage trees, planting requirements, invasive species. So, anyway, that's what, yes.
If we pass this tonight, what commitment are we making? Is there financial commitments that we're making?
No, there's no financial commitment, and we would only be getting a letter of support from the Board of Supervisors for the application. The county said there's been like 8 or 9, when we were in there, there's been 8 or 9 other townships in, so I don't know what our chances of getting a grant in this round are. So obviously, if we don't get a grant, there's no, back to round 1, 2018.
If we do get a grant, are we then committed to go forward with anything?
I guess only if we accept the grant.
Okay. So all we're doing tonight, if we do this, is we're saying, go ahead and look into it. Or go ahead and more than that, but we're not committing ourselves.
We are looking to go ahead and apply for a grant
Right.
with your support. Because obviously we can't go forward without the supervisor's support.
So just to underline, David, if we do not get the grant, we have a choice of proceeding on our own and paying all $14,000 or nothing, correct?
Yeah.
And one other thing, when you and I were on the phone, I want to make this clear and get this right in the minutes. I really hate being rushed to apply for something in the last minute. I get it.
Completely
I get
understand.
it. That's why I agreed to it. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to agree with everything. And it's tougher after that point for somebody to say, no, I don't want that. But be prepared.
Yeah.
There's some of that that's, I'm sure we're all not going to want.
Right.
I feel better. Any questions? Yes, Francis?
If we do accept this, then this changes our zoning ordinance, doesn't it?
Yes. After it's done,
Yeah, but if we accept it, then it becomes part of our zoning ordinance, so then it becomes law, township law?
Well, we would have to, as a task force, talk about those changes. There's nothing in here yet that's going to become law. This is for the township to look at possible changes, or simplification or clarification. But there's no changes yet.
I understand that.
Yeah.
And there was something, because I read that, what was on in the minutes, and it says standards for Greenway, Task 3, because adjacent protected land in public ownership is subject to environmental resources regulations. So does that mean that if you own a piece of property and you're next to public land and your piece of property is a forested piece of property, can it become public property?
No. Private property can't ever become public unless you let it, as far as I know. Chris, you might know better, real estate guy?
That's basically unlawful taking by the government. If you own your land, she's basically talking about what I understood in terms of adjacent land. You're saying that, could you clarify that portion to me? I haven't been to like an EAC meeting in ages, so. This is about the forestry, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
It's
So.
under Task 3.
And that's under
Section A.
Yeah.
Section A.
Somebody, you could bounce the question off, I think it needs to be more clear.
So all it says is revise open space greenway dimensional requirements to protect interior forest environments. Oh, and I have an updated one, Francis, I'm not sure if the language is the same. To maximize protection of woodland areas, blah, blah, blah. Adjacent protected land in public ownership, subject to environmental resource regulation or under conservation easement, shall be considered as comprising part of the dimensional requirements.
That has nothing to do with taking
Yeah.
at all.
That's only if it's,
There's nothing in there. Your land becomes your land. Nothing can happen to your land unless you agree to those changes in writing. That's all that really comes down to. But I think what the township's trying to do here on a greater basis is they're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm going to reach back into my EAC memory from years ago. They want to preserve certain specimen trees on parcels where they deserve protection. Is that summarizing it? I mean, I'm guessing that in a
Yeah,
situation,
and this
you've got a
is-
specimen tree that needs to come down for safety reasons or because it's infested with an invasive species and killing it, the ordinance isn't going to prevent people from doing it.
no, it will not prevent people from cutting their trees down. It will not prevent people from doing a timber harvest if they need to make some extra money. Certainly conserved lands have a lot more restrictions on whether they
Well,
can.
because they already have an easement on it to begin with.
Right.
So if your land is weeds, there's.
But what we're doing tonight is an application.
Right.
The things you were just talking about can't happen until it's done and comes back
I'm just
before us.
trying to clarify that.
And that's what scares the heck out of me too.
Well, I mean, there's all kinds of checks and balances here, and I think as a community, we have to enact certain laws to protect ourselves and think about them very carefully when we enact them. But I was really trying to get clarification for the rule right there, that's all I was trying to do.
Brian, you had a comment?
Yeah. In what the gentleman just there said, what he said and what I'm reading now, I'm reading the document that is on the township website. If we've got something new that is different from that, I don't know what it says at all. But I do remember this started out due to an issue concerning a heritage tree on the township right-of-way. And heritage trees in the document that I read are just barely mentioned. I believe it's only one time. And the township still hasn't done anything about how they manage the heritage trees on their own right-of-way. Now we've got a document, a proposal that affects what other property owners.
Hold on, Brian. No, we don't have a proposal. This is a study to get Ed Thurkoff's group to give us a proposal that'll affect what our ordinances say.
I am reading what Ed Thurkoff wrote and responding and reacting to it.
That may be, but this is an application that we're talking about tonight for grant money. This isn't, we're voting to change laws or anything.
Is this application going to use Ed Thurkoff's proposal as a basis for the application?
Yes.
Then I stand by what I'm stating. Because that says your application is driving in this direction to do the things that are in the proposal.
They can drive, but we can get out of the car anytime we want. That's right.
I know, but you go and you may get also very damaged when you bail out at 45 miles an hour.
I don't think so, but that remains to be seen.
But let me finish with where, this is just a summary of it, is Pennsylvania says that forestry is a use by right. And in this, there's a whole bunch of conditions that are being put on what you can and can't do if you're going to.
Brian, we haven't gotten the work product back from Ed Thurkoff yet, so you're talking about a proposal.
I am right. I am responding to what is said in the proposal. The proposal says this.
But by doing this application, it doesn't say that we're changing our zoning to meet what this proposal said. Am I saying that right?
Yes.
Yes.
But you're doing an application using this proposal to make these changes to your zoning ordinance?
To get a study and somebody else's third-party input on possibly ways to change it, make it better, or whatever. It's a study that we will then look at and say yes to this, no to that.
But if what I just heard Vicki said at the beginning of this is, if we get this grant, approximately $15,000, and we don't enact the zoning ordinance and saldo changes that come out of the proposal results, then we don't get our grant money. Is that
Correct.
true or not?
That's correct.
But the county has strict requirements on who's, that we have to put a task force together, that we have to have public participation, meetings and stuff like that. And they're gonna be, if we get the grant, 50-50 chance.
Well,
And we have to check off all the things to meet the county.
Let me finish then, please. Is, John, you're trying to go and divert. If you approve this and you get the grant and you accept the money, or say you're gonna go and accept the money, you're gonna have the results that are coming out of this proposal.
Brian, I agree with you. And that's, she knows this, that I will, I'm not gonna look at all this stuff. But one thing, keep in mind, we had planned to redo our zoning in 2018 anyway, and with the master plan from the Phoenixville Regional Council. So this is gonna be good input for massaging that part of our zoning ordinance anyway.
Let me finish up with the last thing. Vicki has said several times that it has public input, et cetera, et cetera. In the proposal that I read, public meeting is only at the very end, and it's not for necessarily substantial changes, it says possible changes. And I noticed those words. So you get all the way through to the end, and basically you're going to accept the result.
No.
This is a review of our current zoning and suggestions to improve it. We can accept or decline them, and that part will be in public meetings.
And if you decline them, you now no longer get your $15,000 grant.
Well, it's not, the whole policy or program is gonna cost $14,500. It's a 70% grant, so 70% of that. Yes, and I'm prepared for that, because we're going to have to spend money on this portion of our zoning anyway. You see that?
Now I'm gonna go make one last comment on this one is, we've talked about public comment. This document says that 3/4 of the township would be affected by this if it's in the Hopewell Bridge thing. Are we gonna notify all those potentially affected landowners?
That we're applying for a grant to get us Ed Thurkoff's group to do a study? I don't think so.
No, as you're going through this process, are we gonna notify them so that they know that they're gonna be potentially affected?
When we go through the zoning process and changing, or we'll do whatever's applicable, yes. But this is an application to get one group, Ed Thurkoff's group, to study and make recommendations. That's all it is. That's all it is.
I differ from your view, that's it.
John, thank you for your
Hold on.
clarification. You did a great job.
Hold on, I just want to, okay. Somebody else had their hand up a long time ago.
Anyway, thank you for your clarification, and the fact that you said we can get off the train anytime we want, it seems, why not apply for it and see what happens?
Well, there is a really good reason, because once we are sitting up here and facing you folks, we get that up to the $15,000 or $14,500 mark, it's really tough to pick and choose. It makes it much harder for us, at least for me. That's good.
It's hard to, you can't ever satisfy everybody 100% of the time, John. I mean, there's always going to be somebody dissatisfied, no matter what choice you make.
It's still tough.
It's a tough job, okay? I mean, it just is. But, let's all try to like work on this together as a community and not like go in circles.
It's really tough to say no to Vicky anyway. Anyway, any other questions?
You don't have a
In
motion.
order to, I'm sorry, in order to have to repay the money back to the county, we would have to pass nothing, right? I mean, we pass something, maybe not the ordinance that everyone comes up with, but we pass something, we get reimbursed for the effort, right?
As far as I know,
I took it to mean no, unless we take, but he's changed it to make recommendations or review things rather than make recommendations.
right,
So
yes.
there's less than that. But I believe, Joe,
Less
that,
commitment.
that if he says it's illegal to cut any tree over 5 foot tall, if we don't accept that, they could withhold their portion.
But I don't think we would ever get that far because too many people would say, that's not gonna fly.
Well, you have, I mean, here's a planner, this is a legal ordinance, there's gonna be a lot of legal review. I may not agree with the planner,
This isn't a legal ordinance. This
it's a
is,
zoning ordinance.
we haven't gotten to the zoning ordinance. This is a study.
But you may not be passing what he came up with.
No.
But if the deal is you pass something to cover reasonably these objectives, then you get your money back, and there's not as much risk.
Well, that's the question. That's the question. Is that right? I mean, do we get our money back if we pass something, even if it's not exactly what's recommended? That's a legal question. I shouldn't be asking.
I know, and that's, you'd have to look at the county grant. I mean, they kind of, that APP grant, that's a PDF online, and it kind of lays everything out. like what
The
you're
only
supposed
way
to
I
do.
could take that is no. Be prepared to either not get it unless you accept it. If we do get it, that's our choice.
So, worst case scenario is we don't accept it as is, but maybe we accept something different, and maybe the county doesn't give us the grant, and we're out $14,000. Is that
Well, no, we
worst
wouldn't,
case?
we wouldn't do this without the county grant at this point, unless we'd have to come back to the township and say, we think you should fund this. But that would be, I think, a discussion for when the budgets go together, and when
Vicki, you said you wouldn't do what?
this proposal, we wouldn't have to do this. We just have this proposal, and here's an opportunity to get funding for it. But I'm not saying that the BAC says, we want to spend this money right now. What we want to do is see if we can get a grant to do this.
And then decide to do it.
The grant is going to be based on this proposal.
Yes.
And then the question is, and we're kind of doing the same thing, if we decide not to go on this proposal, we stand some risk in John's mind, and perhaps in mine, that we're out there for $14,000 to be spent, we're not going to get back.
Oh, no, we wouldn't spend any money ahead of being notified about the grant. So there is
Okay.
there is no risk.
Oh, you meant that, okay.
Yes.
So we have no outlay at this point.
Not until we actually accept the grant and actually take their money.
Right.
Right.
And at that point, if we accept the grant, take their money, then what kind of obligation have we gotten ourselves into? Do we then have to go with this?
Yes.
You have to follow the county's checklist of putting together your task force. You have to have a county person. It's very similar to the multimodal study where, and I forget who was from the county, David Shields maybe, was our county liaison. And you go through all these steps. And yes, and when our task force, which hopefully includes, which will include a supervisor or multiple supervisors, we're all going to be talking about, well, what about this? Is this strong enough? Should this be tweaked? That kind of thing. So, and then maybe our Cedarville engineering, we have people in, that are helping also. But that's like cart way in front of the horse at this point.
Just so there's clarification, the grant at 70% comes to approximately $10,000, and our portion would be $4,700. Any other questions? Then, if seeing none, I'll call for a motion on this.
I move that the board authorize sending a letter of support in applying for a grant which the EAC desires to protect the forests and timber harvesting in West Vincent Township.
I'll second the motion. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Next is the Chester Springs Road petition submittal. Wasn't this submitted last meeting, Gloria?
You got copies of it. Wasn't formal submitted.
Okay.
He's emailed around here.
We have a stack of protesters.
Okay.
Not protesters,
Can I keep these?
disagreeers. Yeah, that whole thing in there is for you, for all the,
Okay. You've been busy.
yeah, and you wrote your letter.
Got the letter.
Oh, no, this is the petition.
Okay.
This is our one for tonight.
Okay.
Do you want me to read it, or do you want
Whatever
to just
you'd like to
keep
do.
it in there?
If you would like to read it, we don't want to stop you.
Okay, right there or here?
Wherever you just
Okay.
makes better so everybody can hear you.
Okay. We
Pull the microphone down.
We thank you for your time this evening. We appreciate the opportunity to address our views and concerns to keep the gate closed at the intersection of South Chester Springs Road and Eagle Farms Road. Given that our community is rapidly and dramatically changing, it is important and relevant to revisit why Toll Brothers, in consort with other major developers, constructed a traffic pattern to manage the massive amount of homes they intended to build in the vicinity of South Chester Springs Road, due as it was in part to the ever-expanding transfer of development rights sales from north to south. Right? As that goes? Okay.
You need to put on your microphone.
Isn't this on?
Try to get.
During the planning stages of the development, developers examined extensively best traffic patterns in the vast areas surrounding Eagle Farms Road. Never did these important developers ever embrace, suggest, or demand a traffic flow involving South Chester Springs Road. Of late, there has been considerable discussion. Can you hear me?
Now it's on.
Now it's on. Okay, can you hear me?
Sorry about that, Gloria. You didn't need this.
It's just life, you know. Okay, all right, of late, there has been considerable discussion to transform South Chester Springs Road in a manner differently than what was designed in the developmental stages of the October 2013 Land Development Plan. And it is becoming an arterial transit versus a functional closed road. So it will be a very busy place. We are present tonight to represent a large group of citizenry which strongly opposes the opening of South Chester Springs Road, and as such, are eager to submit to the board this evening 200+ petition signatures of individuals who object to the road opening, requesting the road remain closed and gated as is or cul-de-sac with emergency access. Faced with the challenge to convert South Chester Springs Road and Route 401 into a daily traffic pattern, Toll Brothers and other major developers took a pass to ensure a safe, simple intersection in spite of poor sightlines which fail PennDOT specification. We ask that South Chester Springs Road remain the sanctuary that it is and will continue to be based on geographic constraints such as creeks, culverts, narrow passage, stone walls, and traffic challenges, especially sightlines. Hence, we ask that South Chester Springs Road remain closed as it is today pursuant to the needs of constituents in West Vincent Township. If you have any questions with the signatories, please contact us.
Thank you, Gloria.
Okay, any questions?
No.
You get it, right? Thank you.
Can I make you one promise?
What?
If we decide to do anything, whatever, we will notify you folks so you can come out in mass and beat us over the head or whatever you'd like to do.
You mean while you're building it? Or before? I'll get my armor on.
Okay.
Okay.
No, I'll get my armor on.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gloria. Any questions from the audience for Gloria?
Good job.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Next is a Hollow Road Bridge Repair Bid Award. Tammy, I hate to make you do this, but could you explain what?
I think Brian can.
Brian, I'm sorry, I keep forgetting Brian's here. I apologize, and he's getting paid to be here.
Mr. Chairman, the bids were opened previous Monday, a week ago, and we had, for the Hollow Road Bridge repair, we had, at this time, we had 5 companies submit bids on the second round of documents that we presented. We vetted the companies and all the information, and we have recommended in my letter dated August 16th that the township award the bid to Bi-State Construction Company Incorporated from Easton, Pennsylvania, in the amount of $96,664.
Do you have any idea what our budget was for this?
$100,000. Is my recollection of the estimate for cost.
This doesn't, this is only construction, that doesn't include all the legal fees and the engineering fees and all that.
This is just for construction.
And when would it begin?
After tonight, I would issue to the low bidder a bid award letter. They then have 20 days to respond with all the documents for the contracts. At that point, then they would come back to the township for execution and go back to the bidder. And then at that point, we would schedule the pre-construction meeting and look at scheduling and notice to proceed. Once they get notice to proceed, they have 90 days by contract to complete the work.
Okay, well, it's getting late in the year, so 90 days would take us into next year, probably.
Correct.
Okay, can it be done in December, in the colder months?
It depends on weather because of repaving the road.
Okay. I think we answered this last meeting, that the road will not be closed at any point in time, correct? It'll be
The road
fine.
will be closed.
It will be?
The bridge will need to be closed in order to repair the surface under the asphalt that is currently the water is getting through the road, through the bridge, and deteriorating the bridge. The idea is to clean off the asphalt, put it down a rubberized membrane seal, repair the concrete, put down a rubberized membrane seal, and then repave it.
How long do you anticipate it to be closed, Brian?
The whole contract is only 90 days from notice to proceed.
But how long would the road be closed?
Without having to actually ask the question of the actual contractor, I don't have that answer because it's up to their schedule how they're going to do it. That means and methods for the actual closing and the length of time is individual to each of the contractors. That's something that will be determined at the pre-construction meeting.
Where's the location?
Hollow Road. It's the bridge on Hollow Road that's just, say, northwest of Fellowship.
Hollow.
By Kate Damsgaard's driveway?
Ah,
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah, the bottom of the bridge
has
is-
the old fire department.
Crooked.
Yes, the bottom of the bridge is actually falling. The bottom of the bridge is deteriorating, the concrete is.
That's a big piece, man.
Any other questions for Brian? Jim?
Now, Brian, is there a chance this project due to weather gets delayed and just suspended through the winter?
Yes.
With the road being closed?
No. No, the road, if this project starts this year, the road will be reopened this year. The road will be open within the contract, and if they have to delay the final paving until next year, we will work with the contractor to deal with that. The road will not be closed, just closed.
We need a motion.
Yes.
I move that the board award the bid for the Hollow Road Bridge repair to Bi-State Construction Company The total amount of $96,644 is recommended by the township engineer in his letter dated August 16, 2017.
I'll second the motion. Any questions from the audience at this point? Yes.
Is this the bridge that goes onto Birch Run Road? Is that the one we're
I
talking about?
can't quite hear.
She said, is this the bridge that goes on Birch Run Road?
Oh, okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Next is the Fellowship Trail bid. We are going to delay this to the next meeting.
I move that the board delay the bid award for the construction of Fellowship Trail until September 5th, 2017.
Second motion.
John,
Yes, Brian.
is this the section from Weatherstone to Fellowship Road, or is this the section from Fellowship Road to Evans Park?
The first part, up from Weatherstone to across Fellowship.
Okay, so we're holding off on constructing that then?
We're holding off on awarding the bid, hopefully until next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Yes,
And what state is the other half?
say that again, please.
Where is the other half in the plan?
Next year.
Is it laid out as far as easements and all that? Or still in progress?
No, the project has only been on the drawing board for 10 years. It's going to take at least another 15. Say that again? Yes, please give us an update. He just likes talking into the microphones.
The other portion, which is the St. Matthews connection you're talking about, the surveyor was out in early July for about a week to survey the entire properties for the legal documents. He's currently compiling that and drafting the plan, which is due to be delivered to my office by the end of August, so then we can work with the board and the township staff and the church to lay out where the trail alignment is going to be so that we can lay out the easements.
Is it going to go in front of the church or in back of the church?
My understanding is it's going to be in front of the church.
In front, okay.
It's going to be in front of the church, but not along the right of way. It's going to be back into the property.
Inset from the right of way somehow.
Inset from the right of way some, yes.
But not much. There isn't a whole lot of.
That's why we have to survey it, so we know where we can go. So the idea is to lay the trail out so it's not within the PennDOT right of way, that we're not going to do a PennDOT for permitting.
It's also further off 401.
If everything goes, we're worried about getting this done this year. So we just might have to call and advertise for a special meeting if we get all our ducks in a row.
Oh, right, for the other.
To meet deadlines and stuff like that. So we'll try to keep you posted on the website. But a lot of people have been working on this trail for a long time, and I'd like to see it get done. Anyway, thank you, Brian. I guess we need a motion.
Well, we have a motion.
Yes, okay. Then. Any other questions? I'll second it again, and I'll make it third. Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
The EAC, the 2016 final report. Who's here from the EAC?
Suzanne's here.
The writer of the report.
Say that again, there's no report?
No, I said I was the writer of the report,
Okay.
with a little input from everybody else.
Okay. Is it due in August or in March?
Well, you know, frankly, we never knew we had to do one until it came up in one of the township meetings. And I think you need to instruct all the folks who work on these committees that they do need to give you an annual report. I've never seen one before. I don't think Vicki had ever seen one before. It's something new.
You know, it sounds like you're trying to get fired off this committee, and I can assure you, lady, it's not going to happen.
And I am, absolutely. Yeah. I am, absolutely.
We'll
You
forgive
know,
you.
one of the things, actually, I would like to say something. One of the things that has puzzled me for many years is that we submit written reports every month to the township about what we do. And I don't think anybody reads them. I mean, I think this is the conclusion that I came to when I was sort of informed that I needed to do an annual report, because we've never, in my period of service in the EAC, done an annual report. Formerly, the township manager was the keeper of the minutes. And when I came on the committee, I ended up becoming the keeper of the minutes, as well as the head of the committee. It's a little confusing and it's a little poorly constructed in my mind. You need to have somebody who can actually do the minutes and run a meeting and not do the same job. It doesn't work well. So therefore, when I found out I had to do this, and I have to tell you I postponed it obviously a long time, to review the entire year's minutes. It took me some time, and then I submitted it to my committee, and they also reviewed it so that you could see what we had been working on. So it would be my suggestion that somebody in the township review these minutes from your different committees, because we're here to do a job. And if nobody reviews them, why bother?
I'm sure Erica reviews them, but your point is well taken. When you submit them to, I guess, Tammy or Erica, could you put them in the supervisor's box? That's the only way. We just haven't been getting them, so.
Well, I don't think you've ever gotten them, and I think it's a sin, because a lot of people volunteer to do these jobs.
We just rectified that.
Thank you.
Right.
One suggestion, I think there's at least 2 or 3 different committees or boards or commissions that are supposed to put in annual reports by ordinance. And what Suzanne has said is, we do meeting minutes every month. You know, why do we need to do an annual report on top of that? Maybe it's time to, you know, when the zoning ordinance revision goes through, is to delete the requirement for the annual reports, because, you know, hey, you're getting, you know, meeting minutes every month.
Might be. Less work for everybody. Thank you, Suzanne, and I.
You're welcome.
I move that the board receive with thanks the 2016 yearly report from the EAC.
I think she just said she doesn't have one with her.
I'm sorry? I think you have about 14.
I apologize. I misunderstood you.
You have 2
Second.
pages of review and then a couple of additions.
I second the motion. Any comments from the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor?
I have one comment.
Sorry, Jean?
You'll read it, right?
Absolutely.
Just checking.
Right after the minutes. Maria?
I just have a question. So the minutes for the meetings are posted on the website though, right? So just to address Suzanne for a second, when you do the minutes, it's really, it may be for the supervisors, but more importantly, it's for the rest of us to read at what's going on if someone cares. So they're not wasted.
Good.
I read it.
Okay. Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Next is a proposal to discuss non-discrimination ordinance by Chris.
David?
Would you like the podium?
I do, I want the podium.
Okay, I'd like the following statement to be read into the public meeting minute records in its entirety. I will provide a statement to the township officials now via this hard copy. It's also available via email if you want me to email to you. That way Tammy can just copy and paste rather than retyping the whole thing. So this is a statement. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I want to personally thank Erica Batdorf, who is clearly not here this evening, and Tammy Swaley for meeting with me earlier in June of this year to help me navigate the process of coming before you tonight. So the public is aware, I first presented the idea of an anti-discrimination ordinance to the township staff at the beginning of this summer. I'd like to thank the Board of Supervisors for adding me to the agenda this evening. My name is Christopher Carroll. I have been a West Vincent Township resident for the majority of my life. My family moved here in 1973, and in 1999, my wife and I relocated back when we purchased our house. I
previously served on the West Vincent Township Environmental Advisory Committee for 7 years. Although we are all at least partially protected from discrimination and human and civil rights violations at the federal and state levels, certain aspects of our lives are not free from legal discrimination. Currently, at the state and federal levels, we are protected from legal discrimination based upon age, sex, race, creed, and religion, skin color, national origin or ancestry, physical or mental disability, veteran status, citizenship, familial status, and genetic information. Those are all protected under the federal and state levels. The Pennsylvania adds the following protections to those: with a general equivalency diploma versus high school diploma. You cannot discriminate based upon those things. The use of a service animal and or relationships with the disabled. The following are currently not considered protected classes at the state and federal levels, meaning that the local municipalities must enact ordinance to provide protection for the following classes: sexual orientation, gender identity, and marital status. For example, unless we codify an anti-discrimination ordinance, an LGBTQ+ person, and for those that don't know what that means a lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgendered, or queer person, can legally refuse to provide services and housing to straight people, and vice versa. That is legal. A landlord can refuse to rent to a married couple, and vice versa. A transgendered individual can refuse services to a cisgendered person, and vice versa. Although reports of discrimination in the township are purely anecdotal at this point, it would be best if we follow the lead of communities like Kennett Square, Phoenixville, Westchester, and Philadelphia, and adopt an anti-discrimination ordinance now versus waiting until there's an actual problem that needs to be resolved. I propose that the Board of Supervisors adopt an ordinance with the same intent and effect as Phoenixville's. This will grant no one any special rights. It will ensure that there are legal remedies available when any one of us, straight, bisexual, or gay, transgendered or cisgendered, and married or unmarried, face discrimination. If anyone would like to read the Phoenixville Anti-Discrimination Ordinance, it can be found online, and I'm not going to read this address because it's impossible to translate into English, but I have copies here, and I'll be glad to email it to anybody. I'll take email addresses. I propose that the Board of Supervisors basically study and adopt an ordinance with the same intent and effect as the one enacted by the Borough of Phoenixville this summer. I'd like to thank everybody for their time. That's my statement, and I will give this to Tammy and the supervisors, and I actually have a bunch of copies of the ordinance here on a first-come, first-served basis. You can take the whole one, and as I said, I'd be glad to email a copy of the ordinance for everybody for review. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Oh, he gets one too.
Yeah, of course, it's my letter. Here's a copy of the ordinance, one for you.
Thank you.
My letter, it's a copy of the ordinance, and if you could just take this and put it into the meeting minutes, that would be great. Thanks, everybody. John?
Well, I think we should have a discussion. Any questions for Chris?
I'm not a lawyer, so anything I say is to be taken with a grain of salt.
Well, I think what Chris asked is that we consider this and maybe adopt some of it or all or something like that. I'm not sure it requires discussion tonight, but it's, it's
I'd like to go forward and not just die as like something happening. I'd like to be eventually, yes, we're going to do it, or we're not going to do it. But we can discuss it. I think that civil discourse is really the hallmark of our democracy, and our freedom, and we need to come together as a community. And I'm willing to hear people's dissent, if somebody dissents or concerns. So I don't think what we're doing here is trying to grant anybody any kind of special right, make anybody unequal or greater than or less than anybody. This is a protection that extends things so everybody, no matter what your identity is protected from discrimination. That's basically it.
Question, Joe. Do you agree with Chris's statement that sexual orientation and the various things he mentioned are not protected by federal or state law?
Yes, I'm familiar with that.
Do you agree with his statement?
I agree that sexual orientation is not covered by the Federal and State Human Relations Act. And I've written this ordinance before in Upper Merion Township, so I'm very familiar with the issues.
There was, in my research after we met a few weeks ago, Chris, online I saw something from the Human Relations Department from the state, that they have a corrective amendment before the House or Senate. It's been there for 2 years. Is there any movement on that?
I'm not familiar with any movement on that. I know that in my office is Tim Briggs, who is a state rep, and that he's been pushing for that to be amended. I don't know what the current status of it is.
Something that occurred to me on my way home today, thinking about this, is the organization PSATs, do they get involved in stuff like this? I mean,
PSATs can get involved, and if there's any kind of, well, there's a couple of different organizations. If any legislation is proposed, PSATs reviews it to determine whether to take a position for or against or stay neutral. And I'm also president of Pennsylvania Bar Association Municipal Law Committee, so I get to comment whether the Bar Association is going to support, oppose, or stay neutral in given legislation. So there's a couple different avenues, one on behalf of municipalities, another one on behalf of lawyers. And it seems to be a state issue. If the state would fix this issue, each municipality wouldn't have to be doing what we're doing. The issue would go all the way through state legislation.
just what he said, when I got home, I do my best. Some people think I do my only thinking in the car on the way home. But there's, I think, approximately 65 townships in Chester County, and another 10 or 15 boroughs and towns. So if there's 75 in Chester County, if you multiply times, it's like almost 3,000 municipalities in the state of Pennsylvania. And each one could have a separate, different ordinance.
I agree. My wife and I were talking about this the other night, and she said, Chris, if you really want to make it happen at the state level. I'm like, I don't have those connections. I can only work locally, and I can most affect change on a local level right now. I wish I could do it at the state level, and I wish the state would close these loopholes, that way it doesn't have to be done in a hodgepodge pathway, but we're not there,
So Jeff, we just decided to, let's call it endorse this. We would write letters to our, Becky Corbin and John Rafferty and their state reps and PSATs and people in the Human Relations Commission.
Well, PSATs doesn't really get involved until there's some kind of legislation proposed.
But there is legislation proposed. It's been there for 2 years.
Yeah, it's been sitting there for 2 years. I think your best course is to write to your local rep and your local state senator. If you do it statewide, you fix the problem statewide. You don't have variations in ordinances. And one of the issues, as I see it, is that if you do get a complaint, let's say you form a Human Relations Commission, and you do get a complaint, well, then you need to investigate that complaint. That takes resources. You need to prosecute that complaint. That takes resources. And then the people you're prosecuting against are also your citizenry and taxpayers because they're your local business.
I didn't say that we had to adopt the Phoenixville ordinance verbatim either. I said that we should base our ordinance upon the intent and effect of it. I didn't say it has to be word for word. Obviously, I'm not saying let's go tonight and take a vote on this. This is something that needs to be developed, and this is the first step towards developing a solution at the local level, since the county and the state and the feds don't want to step in, and we have no idea when that's going to happen. Why do we wait? I mean, why can't we start the wheels moving forward to offer a solution to all of our citizens now, then wait for something that may or may not materialize in the future? I mean, all I'm saying is let's get the ball rolling. There's nothing.
I can only equate my experience to what I did in Upper Merion. And in Upper Merion, we examined all the other ordinances that are out there, and we pick and chose what we thought was appropriate. And we limit to just sexual orientation, because we don't want to get involved in all the other areas of discrimination and have duplicative effort.
Right.
And then we formed the Human Relations Commission, and that comes with a $10,000 a day fine to anyone that does discriminate. So it has teeth.
Right, well, the one that Phoenix has doesn't have really as much teeth as the Upper Marion one, from my reading of the ordinance. It's more of a, has the effect more of a trying to mediate and resolve problems before it gets to law.
Okay, well,
In such a way, you know.
I guess you can get into the nuances
Well,
of
anyway,
all the different ordinances.
all I'd like to do at this point is to kind of get the community to understand the intent and the purpose of adopting an ordinance and going down that road and exploring it, you know, and I think it's something that we need to do as a society to protect our citizens on a local level. And as I said, you only did it for sexual orientation and Upper Marion. This adds marital status and gender identity. And the marital status one is really important, especially for everybody. But to understand that currently, right now in this township, if there was a single person out there that owned real estate and decided they didn't want to rent to somebody, it's just a far out thought, but it's a hypothetical, you know, conversation we're having. They could legally say to a married couple without children, because children override everything, they could say to a married couple without children, I'm not going to rent to you because you're married and there's nothing you can do about it.
Well, I'm not going to debate MERS with you, because I have municipalities that have passed what you're looking for. I have municipalities that have not passed what you're looking for. I have a state rep in my office that works for me that is actively trying to do something.
Right.
So I'm not going to debate the MERS. It's a matter of whether this board wants to do it, and whether they want to invest the resources necessary to do it properly.
Right.
And that's the board's decision, it's not my decision.
Yes.
I'm Kenny Carroll, so I'm Chris's father, for those who don't know me. It's a lot easier to pass the legislation on a local level than it is to pass it on a state level. And as you stated, it's already been on the state level for the past 2 years without any action taking place. So I think the proposal here is give the community an opportunity to look at this and make a decision, as opposed to waiting for the state, which has been essentially inactive for the past 2 years on this position.
But there might be something we could do. It might be futile, but it's worth it. We got to think about it.
Well, I want to say this, I didn't know of this issue until just this week. But I think that it's good to be awakened to the possibility of, I don't have the right words, but basically, we're helping people, not harming them, by protecting everyone. I guess that's my feeling. You're not hurting anybody by moving forward to open a conversation. Like, it wasn't first thing on my mind, but when I heard it, I thought, well, why not? Why not discuss it? You know, who does it hurt? It just helps.
All right.
I'm a little unclear on the comments regarding renting, because I have a long career in the rental business, and I always thought those were protected by the Federal Fair Housing Act. So, and in familial status, to my experience and understanding has always been that it didn't matter whether you were married, not married, had children, didn't have children, who you were married to, what you were married to. If you were married, it was a familial status, and it went very broad. So I'm not disagreeing with this. I just have a question. Did something change since I've left that industry?
You're right about the familial status, but what he's raising is something outside of that.
May I answer that question?
Yes.
And I'll also introduce myself as being a real estate broker in the state of Pennsylvania for 50 years. Familial status only protects families with children. It does not protect a single person or a married person.
That's not my understanding.
Well, you should speak with your
I'll
real
look
estate
into it.
broker.
I will look into it. Another real estate professional.
But it really doesn't have a whole lot of
Impact on us. I understand.
what
I
we're
just was
discussing
curious.
tonight. Yes?
I was just thinking that, with the climate in the country today, where there's hate going on, it might be nice for West Vincent to somehow make a statement, whether it's an ordinance or some other way of advertising ourselves as being welcoming to all sorts of people, no matter who they are, what religion, what sexual orientation. I don't know the details of what you're talking about ordinances, but if it could be some sort of a presentation that shows our attitude about it.
I think what Chris is trying to do, he'd love to see an ordinance drawn right away, but he realizes there may be something in the Phoenixville that one or all of us object to, and there are some things as in any legislation. But what he also said, he really doesn't care, pick and choose. There's been 43 municipalities have passed a similar ordinance. So we have 43 other ordinances to choose from, and that'll give us something to work on.
Could you adopt it as a statement of conscience or something other than an ordinance?
It's a nice idea.
Well, we can do that, but I'd rather have, we're missing a supervisor. I'd rather make that unanimous when it comes. But and maybe we should consider that in a recommendation to the state. We can do that. They've got to get off their horse. This needs to be a state issue. I understand that it's been there 2 years, but it just got to be.
I'm still having trouble hearing, but...
I'm sorry. It would be so much easier, like Joe said, rather than the other 2,500 municipalities passing a separate ordinance and paying for approximately $10,000 for every ordinance that we adopt, that if the state did it, it's done, and it becomes ours. But I think it's a good start. I think we need to get Mike back, and then this is something we can't discuss this in an executive session, is it?
No.
So we got to do it out front. So you'll be hearing more of it.
So what's my next step with you guys? Do you want to just talk in the next couple weeks?
Keep putting it on the agenda.
Just keep putting it on the agenda. And one more comment. What do you think the chances of going to the county versus the state are? The county countywide. If we put our efforts there versus the state, are the chances greater or less?
There was serious talk in Montgomery County about the county commissioners doing it. And it never came to fruition, but there was serious movement there. So you can also do it countywide too.
Right.
But they may be directing it to the state also, but that means you shouldn't try.
My goal is to get these sexual orientation, gay, straight, bisexual, whatever, gender identity, transgender, cisgender, and married and unmarried people covered. Because right now, if you do your research, you will find out that those three classes are completely legally discriminated against in West Vincent Township. And I know we don't want to, but you can't ever foretell the future. My goal here is to plug these holes now at the least expensive way possible for the township as quickly as possible.
In your experience, I know this is going to sound like a stupid question, but do county commissioners have any sway with state reps?
They do, but as local elected officials, you also have some sway in the state reps too.
Well, no, I'm sure we do, but I just wasn't sure that.
Because the county covers several state reps. But if you're right in the state rep's backyard, what else can you do?
This week, maybe tomorrow, Wednesday, I'll make a phone call to county commissioners and see what's up. I'll let you know. Any other comments from the audience?
Yeah, how you doing? My name's Cora. I just want to say, I just think it's kind of strange that a minority would ask to be considered a minority and be told they're not a minority. I'm not saying yay or nay, it just seems kind of weird. in this, I mean, I don't know if that's the issue or not, but it just seems.
No, I don't think it's a minority status. I think it's what do you call it, a rights issue.
I don't know if I clarified myself, but can I ask you a personal question? Are you married? No. Are you single? I'm not gonna write to you because you're single. I mean, that's exactly how the law.
No, I understand, like, I understand that people who are married aren't entitled to like inheritance or stuff like that. They would have to pay complete taxes to the feds and to the states and stuff.
Well,
I didn't understand
I'm just trying to explain. We're trying to have a clarification. You walk into a place of business, it's open to the public, to everybody. Doesn't even matter what it is. And you go in, and for some reason the person there has got something across, their behind about single people. I don't know, maybe you you're single and you're living with your partner, whoever that might be. And they just don't want to service you because you're not married. They can legally do that in residence in Township because it's not covered by the state, which is not fair to be able to discriminate against somebody based upon this criteria. Because it cuts both ways. Try to protect everybody. I can see there's extremists on either side, and somebody can be, resentment and just hate somebody based upon whether they're married or not, whether they're, and we don't want to protect everyone. That's what I'm trying to do. It's not about protecting a minority, it's about extending this to protection for everyone. I know that as a married person, I wouldn't want somebody who doesn't believe in marriage to say to me and my wife, I'm not going to provide this service to you because I don't believe in the sanctity of marriage. I mean, that would be horrendous.
Maybe I didn't frame it right, but that's sort of like what I was thinking.
Any other comments?
And just to back up to the political aspect, no offense to John Rafferty or Becky Corbin or the commissioners, but the reason we shouldn't wait for the state to do it, and this is going to sound partisan, and I don't mean it, it's just realistic. I'm a Democrat and strongly and can say all sorts of things about Republicans. That's not what I'm doing here. I'm just saying that Republicans are in control of the houses that would bring this law up and pass it. And even if Becky's for it and John's for it, 2 Republicans, it wouldn't matter. If they brought it up, it wouldn't matter. It's up to the leadership. And the leadership is pretty far to the right. And again, I'm not judging that. That's fine for some people. But the leadership are the ones who decide what gets brought up. And no matter how much Becky and John and the 2 Republican commissioners in Chester County press it, it's not going to get brought up unless the leadership in the Pennsylvania State Senate and House of Representatives, if they bring it up, and they're not going to. So there's not much value in waiting for them to do it.
Well, I hope you're wrong. You're probably right, but I hope you're wrong. But it's certainly worth giving it a shot. But also what we have to do is go through the Phoenixville ordinance, decide as supervisors what we like about it, what we don't like about it, and go from there. Any other comments? Well, thank you, Chris, for bringing that up. And I guess we have one other thing on the agenda. Public comment on non-agenda items. Come on. There's no, I knew there had to be at least one there.
Twofold question. Can you give us the status of the completion of the Fox Hollow Trail and also the paving of the turnaround on South Chester Springs?
Can't give you the dedication to the road on South Chester Springs came about 2 weeks ago.
Right.
And Erica's not here. Unfortunately, she took the day off.
She's entitled.
So, and what was the first one?
Fox Hollow Trail.
Brian, I know Mike and Mark Hughes were out there, and
I don't know the status of where they're at. All I know is they've been out to look at it.
I know they were out there not only clearing, but more importantly, they were marking it so our road crew could be clear.
So is clearing started or no?
I know they started marking it, but I don't know how far they got.
Okay.
I apologize. Mike will be back next week.
Are we expecting it to be completed before the end of the year? Before winter sets in?
What year?
This year, yeah.
Yes.
Excellent, thank you.
David said so.
Okay.
Any other comments? Francis?
I'd like to thank you for the Herculean job you're doing on Jamie Lane and Flowing Springs Road. I mean, you've put a lot of work into an intersection that has been a pain in the neck for over 30 years. But can I ask you to do just one more thing? When the road crew's finished, because there's, where they work, they fill in part of it, and then there's this big ditch. Could they put some yellow cones, just in case a poor stray person that lives in New Jersey decides to make a broad turn and fall in the ditch?
I will mention, I'm sure that's just a minor
It's
oversight.
just really minor.
I understand that heavy rain, those ditches along were 4 foot deep in some
Yeah,
places.
and you've done a lot of work on it. Yeah, it's come a long, long way.
Yeah.
But you
Right,
really
we
can't,
have to-
once the sun goes down, you can't see what's there. And it's gonna take a while to complete that job.
I will call Mark. Next year, budget, I'm sure you're gonna sit down with Erica. Janie Lane has to be on there. Has to be. Brian, it has to be. Anyway, any other comments?
Yeah, what's the status of Horseshoe Trail? And can you fill in some of those craters that are there until it's actually fixed? Because it's almost undrivable for some certain cars.
We realized that there was an issue with right-of-ways that we were trying to get so we could widen the road a little bit. Brian, where's that stand?
The weather dependent, but the paving is currently slated to start the week of September 11th.
So we're getting real close. That's 2017, right? Yes. They always kind of ask that around here.
Yes, there's PennDOT approval still pending on that. Once the PennDOT approvals come in, then they can get started.
Why do they need to approve it?
PennDOT has to approve the asphalt mix they're going to use. PennDOT doesn't approve the asphalt mix, they don't pay for it.
Okay. Any other comments? Seeing none of them. Yes, sir.
Thank you for your consideration.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Any other comments? No. Entertain a motion to end this meeting?
So moved.
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for